Hey guys, Mooky here, and I'm back with another part of What If Izuku Had Archer's Powers. This is part 18. So, before I start this, I decided to make a little bit of changes. The switch time between Izuku switching between projection and One for All, I decided to change that. Originally, from 10 seconds, he actually was 20 seconds long before he could switch. So I'm actually switching it to 10 seconds instead. So yeah. Anyway, that's it. Let's get into this. Right after what happened, the events that led up for the host from the internship and the confrontation with Stain, everything goes back to normal. However, said normal doesn't last forever, as videos about Stain began popping up everywhere, from his reasoning being the hero killer for why he does what he does, his origin story on who he was, even back during the time when he was still a hero known as Stendhal. It all comes up as the League of Villains begins getting new members. Not only that, Izuku's name comes up from time to time as somebody who Stain dictates to be a true hero. So many people began badgering Izuku from time to time, even those in Class 1A. But speaking of that, everybody begins talking about their internships, same with Sue and with Jiro and everyone else. Even Momo feels like she's learned a lot from her internship with Power Loader. And actually, she has a pretty good relationship now with Hatsume as well, even though she does think she can be annoying from time to time. But everyone begins pointing at Izuku, Shoto, Ida, and Bakugo, saying that they changed way much more, especially with everyone saying that they were in the center of what happened at Hosu, and they're all glad that they're okay. Momo was worried for them as well, but she mostly stares at Izuku. But she's still worried about Shoto and Ida and Bakugo as well. As soon after, Kaminari begins saying if they've seen everything about Stain and about his and the videos, making him seem pretty cool and all that. As Jiro basically tells him, Kaminari, think before you say anything. Don't you know what happened with Ida's brother, right? As he begins realizing what he just said and about to apologize. But just like before, Ida begins saying that he understands what Kaminari's coming from and believes and does understand what Stain was doing, but he doesn't respect it and doesn't approve of what he did was right, even if he believed it was right. As everything goes back to normal, and Ida basically does his usual honor student self, as Izuku encourages him. Soon after, everyone else was worried about Izuku, and since he still has a bit of bandages around his arm, as he says that this is the last, as he tells him that it's the last of his bandages. Soon after, tomorrow, he can remove them. And everyone begins lighting up a little bit. As for their hero work, such as the event where they work on their mobility and train with All Might, Izuku kind of gets ahead of everyone because he now has a mastery of One for All. Well, not a mastery, more like he has the pretty good feel of it, being able to move from building to building easily. As everyone is shocked seeing how much Izuku has improved. But Bakugo doesn't feel inferior. He just wants to prove that he's just as strong, that he knows that he can handle this, that he can get ahead of him one day. But in this one, Izuku doesn't get last place because he didn't watch his footing. He actually gets second place, but Zero still gets first because his quirk is way much better for mobility and air because of that. As for that, All Might begins telling Izuku to meet him in his office and to tell him everything. As the day ends, Izuku sees All Might, and All Might tells him everything from the League of Villains, his past, and from his master, Nana Shimura, who was the previous holder, One for All before him, and saying that the origins of One for All, from All for One, and the duty of the One for All holders is to defeat him and bring true peace to the world. As Izuku feels like he has a huge weight on his shoulders from just having a quirk from the number one hero, but taking on the very symbol of evil himself. He feels like he has to get stronger. He has to become even stronger. He begins telling All Might he knows that he can do this as long as he's by his side. As just like before, All Might hesitates on telling Izuku that it's possible that he may die in the future. As Izuku just leaves and begins wondering, he needs to learn different fighting styles, not just with hand-to-hand combat, but also with swords. He begins looking up. He remembers what Stain tells him about his sword, and begins looking up information on Kojiro Sasaki about his fighting style, his training, the very sword he used, and everything else. He may be a legend, just a fictional character, but that fighting style that Stain used on Izuku, he needs to find a way to use that as well, but not in a lethal way, more in a disarm any opponent kind of way. So that night, he begins figuring out his fighting style using his Masamune sword, and tries learning each and every technique that Kojiro Sasaki learned, that legends say Kojiro Sasaki learned. He doesn't know how to use the same attack that Stain used just yet, but he wants to figure out sooner than later. After that, everything as Aizawa tells them to prepare for their final exam, both written and physical, that everyone begins freaking out. Mostly Kaminari, of course, since, it's Kaminari. As everyone was wondering on what they're going to be doing for the physical exam, because some of them are ready for the written exam pretty well. As everyone wonders if they should do study sessions. As Izuku, Shoto, and Ida are just excited, ready for what comes ahead. Mostly because they know that they can handle this. But again, Kaminari feels like he's lacking, because he knows he's not that smart than those three. As Momo basically walks up to the three of them, wondering if they would want to help, if they want help with a study session at her place. As Izuku says, "Sure, I don't mind. It would actually be fun." As Ida says, "I'll join as well, if that's okay." Shoto begins saying, "I can take care of myself. Don't need to worry about me." As everything goes as all the others, being like Kaminari, Mina, Jiro, and Ojiro, along with Zero, also tag along as well. As Kirishima was about to tag along until Bakugo stopped him, saying, "You don't think I could help you, shitty hair?" As he says, "Nah, I'm pretty sure you can." With a sweat coming down his face. Got a cold sweat down his face and everything. As everything goes as usual, just like with Monoma basically antagonizing Class 1A as usual, about them bringing villains to the school and everything. As Kendo comes up to Monoma, knocks him out as usual, and apologize on his behalf in Class 1B as well. As they basically tell them that it's okay. And she, as just as usual, she gives some information about them fighting against robots instead, as usual. As Izuku begins muttering to himself, and freaks out everyone else, but Monoma gets a little bit pissed off just as usual, saying that they could get ahead of those class of idiots if she didn't say anything. As she tells him, "You're the only idiot here." As everyone begins practicing for the finals, both for the written exam, and everyone arrives at Momo's place as usual, with everyone surprised seeing this, even Izuku with eyes wide open, with Momo excited about helping everyone, especially with Izuku being there with the study session as well. She's actually kind of excited a little bit, but also nervous. As a couple days go by and everyone preparing for their final exam for the written part, everything goes as usual. And everyone feels like they passed pretty damn well. As they arrive at the field area where they did their entrance exams and preparing for their practical exam. As Kaminari and Mina basically are excited that they're going to fight against the robots, as all the other teachers saying that that's not going to happen this year, as they're not going to be fighting against robots, they'll be fighting against them. As everyone is basically terrified, surprised, and a bit going to wonder if they can even pass this exam. As I decided to change up the matchups this time. I decided to change up two matchups, being Izuku and Momo are fighting against Aizawa, where Bakugo and Shoto are actually fighting against All Might. So, that said, I think I should end it here. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I tried to put a lot of details in this one. I was actually holding off on this one for a bit because I wasn't for sure on who should I pair together. Because I know that Izuku and Bakugo have a pretty good relationship, and Momo is a lot more competent because of Izuku being her rival and her actually having feelings for him this time. But at any rate, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Please leave a comment below and tell me what you guys think, and also leave like buttons because it helps out my channel a lot, and subscribe too. At any rate, this is Mooky signing out. Later.